Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. The prospect of a Deontay Wilder-Luis Ortiz fight, that is something that I've been meaning to come to all week. But in part I've held off because just in case there was going to be an official announcement. I thought, well, one may come. Remember, we're only 7.5 weeks out from November 4th, which is apparently the fight date. But it's safe to say now, I think, that the earliest an announcement could happen is next week. Early next week sometime would be the earliest. The promoters involved, they will want to let the dust settle from the Canelo Triple G fight and make sure that they can get the most exposure for Wilder, Ortiz and the promotion in general. Because otherwise, if it comes out now, the official announcement, it'll just get swamped and largely disappear in the reflected glow of this mega fight we have going. So what do we actually have here? What do we actually know? Well, it has been reported ad nauseum all around the place that a fight between Wilder and Ortiz is reportedly scheduled for November 4th at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. If true, really is great news. It really is. Because I am all for big heavyweight fights. And this is one of the biggest that can be made in the heavyweight division today. Often in the heavyweight division, the fans do not get what they want, which is we want to see these top guys. Say if you have 15 top guys, you want to see these guys competing against each other to sort of sort the wheat from the chaff. We want to know how good they are, who is the top dog or top dogs as it may be. But often the business side, it gets in the way. And by business side, I don't just mean the money. It's also about position. Because people are coming up the ranks, positioning themselves because they want to get that title shot, the big payday, the chance to win the belt, all that sort of thing. So too often, guys who are on the rise and whatnot, we don't see them coming up against comparatively similar level fighters. And that kind of, it's a shame for us as the fans, but I understand it as well because boxing's a career, it's someone's livelihood, they want to make the most of the opportunity. But we've here got a chance for a really great fight, and we have WBC champ Deontay Wilder. He is an explosive knockout artist. He says he's elite, but is yet to face an elite level opponent since becoming champion. So he beat Bermane-Stiverne. Bermane-Stiverne is a sort of, he won that belt with Areola. It was a vacant belt. So he was what you'd call a paper champion. It's not like he'd really proved that he deserved to be the champion. But 5 defenses later, Bermane-Stiverne is still the best name on Deontay Wilder's record. So you can sort of see that getting in the ring with one of the most avoided men in the division, it's a chance for Wilder to prove he is legit, that he is elite. Because when your record has names like Molina, Duhaupas, Spilka, Areola, and Washington, you go, well, they're solid, but they are just B+ level fighters at best. They are not the guys that fans are clamouring to see a champion face. And they're not his mandatory opponents. They were all voluntary defences. And we know the Povetkin situation. That was unfortunate for Wilder. That was a chance. That step-up chance was 18 months ago now. But it was denied because the PED stuff that sort of arose. But now, if he does get Ortiz, he can get in there. And a win would represent, a case of it would wash away the doubts many fans have about him. And it would give him the respect and credibility he so obviously craves. There might be some of you who think, though, that, well, respect and credibility, come on, he's got that because he's the champion. I would say that he has a measure of those two things, but when the best name on your record is still Bermane-Stiverne, your cup doth not runneth over. But from all accounts, all appearances, Wilder has been keen to get this fight with Ortiz made. And from judging by fans' reaction a couple of months ago now, or 6 weeks, whenever it was, and it first came out that this was in the pipeline, fans were giving Deontay Wilder a lot of credit. They really wanted to believe that this was going to happen and he had a chance to prove how good or otherwise he was. So hopefully this thing does get announced pretty quickly, because he already does have a deal in place from what Bermane-Stiverne has said, his mandatory challenger for the WBC title, for a step-aside. But I would say, and this is where we're coming to the other part of the story, the Luis Ortiz part, that the desire to get this fight made, it actually plays into what I believe has been a big hold-up in getting the fight made. And that hold-up is Luis Ortiz. And not because he doesn't want the fight, not because he doesn't want to face Wilder, but more because he wants to have his cake and eat it too. Remember, the Cuban southpaw, he has options. After being sort of in the cold for years, not, having a chance at a title, all of a sudden, this guy has options, and he's got riches. He's got this Wilder fight, but we can't forget, he's maneuvered himself into position as the WBA mandatory challenger for Anthony Joshua's WBA belt. That is a big, big payday. Career-defining payday. So, it's going to trump a Wilder payday. Maybe by half, maybe by 2/3. It would be a lot more. You would imagine so. So when people have been asking, well, what's the hold-up to sign the Wilder fight and make it official? My view is, well, Ortiz and his people have been trying to use the leverage of the Joshua fight and the cash that it brings with it to push up the payday to fight Wilder. It makes a lot of sense, right? Remember, Ortiz, he can just wait it out if he wants to for Joshua. And he can, if he doesn't like the terms, he can go, well, I will just sit here and wait. And I think the other piece of leverage in the equation is Deontay Wilder really does need Luis Ortiz. He's already arranged the step aside for Bermane-Stiverne. No one wanted to see that fight. Broadcasters didn't want to see the fight. Fans didn't want to see the fight. The only one who wanted to see the fight was Bermane-Stiverne. So a big fight here has to be delivered now. Or otherwise, well, what was the point in arranging the step aside? Because you don't solve the problem, you only delay it till later on. So this step aside, well, this has created the expectation with the public that he's going to be fighting someone big, someone decent. And it must be said, the public has tired of Wilder fighting less than elite level guys. He's been the champion for almost 3 years now, and the names I named earlier, Arreola, Spilker, Molina, Washington, Duhaupas, they are not the best guys that he could have fought. People accuse him of being a cherry picker. So, if he doesn't end up fighting Ortiz, or someone of that ilk, then the fans will absolutely turn on him and tear him a new one. And Team Ortiz know this. Deontay Wilder has a real image problem, and it's one in part that him and his team have created, and it's sort of just been this rolling juggernaut. And this is why a lot of fans are skeptical about Deontay Wilder, because he's faced guys that aren't at his level, and people want to see that. Ortiz's people, they know that, and they've probably been trying to exploit it at the negotiating table, especially because the expectation has been created that the fight is happening. And clearly from what Matchroom promoter Eddie Hearn has said to IFL TV this week, Team Ortiz has been working all the angles, working both sides of the fence, including with Hearn. They're trying to crib the best possible outcome for 38-year-old Luis Ortiz. And they have actually been trying to get Joshua stripped of his WBA belt because he was facing IBF mandatory Kubrat Pulev first. So Ortiz, and according to Hearn, allegedly wanted step-aside money to allow Pulev to go ahead of him in the Anthony Joshua queue. And he also wanted to be allowed to fight Wilder. And clearly Eddie Hearn, thought he was having a laugh, and because he said it doesn't work like that. It just doesn't work like that. But Team Ortiz, good on him for trying it on. So Hearn says he offered Ortiz to fight on the undercard of AJ and Pulev, but this offer was rejected. But should a Wilder-Ortiz fight be made, the winner could be in line next to face Anthony Joshua. Hearn has already said that Wilder was third in the queue. And the queue a couple of weeks ago was Pulev, Ortiz, and then Wilder. So if Wilder and Ortiz are faced, it's basically an eliminator to face Joshua should he get past Pulev. But in terms of things Eddie Hearn was hearing on the grapevine, he said he understood a deal was basically done, but there was arguing over the money. And that would certainly play into my theory that I've already mentioned about why there's been such a delay in getting this fight signed. Just bear in mind again, we're only, 7-ish weeks out from the November 4th date? It's not a long time. It's not a long time at all. But interestingly though, you may recall from earlier this week, there was a social media post that Luis Ortiz's management team, and see on screen, because I actually, in one of my heavyweight news in brief, and you can check out the playlist if you want to go back to that one, I'll put a card on screen here. In this social media post, they were responding to a Deontay Wilder post that had said King Kong and New York don't mix, etc. So the response, they said, and called Wilder a little girl and told him, sign the contract. Curiously though, that post, it's been taken down. It is no longer up on the Instagram account it was posted to. Pretty interesting, right? What can we really read from that? Well, it would say to me, and being conservative here, that we've probably seen some progress in the negotiations. And since then as well, we've had Deontay Wilder on radio talking about a November 4th date. But at the same time, he's sort of been talking around the issue a little bit. But that is still more than we had before. I mean, we know Berman Stiverne has been running his mouth for a couple of weeks now about a step-aside deal, which in my view, the timing of that only amplified the expectations that a Wilder-Ortiz deal was imminent. So, I stick by what I said 2 weeks ago, that Stiverne was stepping out of turn here. He probably needed to just keep his views to himself until they could get this thing done, because apparently he's on the undercard. He says that he's due to face Dominic Breazeale. And this is something that Breazeale actually has alluded to in an Instagram post that he's put up. It's on screen now. So he says, it will be a November to remember. Put them hands on Stiverne. I guess personally, I actually think that Breazeale would wipe the floor with Stiverne, but, we'll have to see on that one. The Breazeale post, though, just, think about it like this. This is akin to water that's leaking from a dam. That it's heralding the flood to come from when the dam bursts. So I'd expect the flood, which is the official announcement, to come sometime in the days after the Canelo Triple G fight. After all, like I said, only 7 or so weeks to go until fight night. They need to get it official fast and get the promotional wheels turning. Get it all into motion. And I note from some of the reporting that's been happening on this fight or card that is being constructed, that apparently Danny Jacobs might be on it. That would be a great addition if it was. He's a good fighter. I actually thought he beat Triple G a few months ago, but it's by the by now. We'll have to wait and see. What do you make of this all? Are you looking forward to seeing a Luis Ortiz Deontay Wilder fight? Is it going to happen? Are we having the announcement very shortly? Who would you favour out of Stiverne and Breazeale? Let me know. Drop a comment. Hit like. Subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.